The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and dreamed of what was out there. When they finally reached the stars, they found something unexpected. They were not alone. The galaxy was full of life. Hundreds of species had built empires among the stars. They had formed something called the Galactic Collective, a group of worlds that worked together for peace and trade. When humanity arrived, they were like children walking into a room full of adults. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his ship, the Soul's Pride, and looked out at the stars. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. For 30 years he had served in Earth's defense fleet, but there was not much to defend against. Earth had chosen peace. "Sir, we have another message from the Dominion," said his communications officer. They were a warrior species. They were tall, with thick gray skin and 4 arms. They loved war the way humans loved music, and they did not respect humanity at all. "What do they want now?" asked. "They say our patrol ships are too close to their border. They call it an insult." Shook his head. Earth's ships were exactly where they were supposed to be. They just liked to complain. They liked to push. They wanted to see if humanity would push back. But humanity never pushed back. That was the rule. 80 years ago, when Earth first joined the Galactic Collective, they made a choice. They would not build a large military. They would not threaten other species. They would show the galaxy that humans were peaceful, cultured, and civilized. They would earn respect through art, trade, and diplomacy. It had worked in a way. Earth was known throughout the galaxy as a place of beauty. Human music played in alien cities. Human paintings hung in alien museums. Human writers were read on 1,000 worlds. But respect, that was harder to find. Many species looked at Earth and saw weakness. They saw a world without great warships. They saw a species that would not fight. And in a galaxy where power meant everything, that made humanity a joke. On the planet below, Ambassador was having lunch with 3 alien diplomats. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a quick smile. She had spent 20 years building friendships across the galaxy. "The trade agreement is almost complete," she said, putting down her cup of tea. "Earth will provide art and cultural goods. Your worlds will provide raw materials. Everyone benefits." The alien across from her made a sound like grinding rocks. It was their way of laughing. "You humans," said the alien, a large creature covered in blue scales. "Always trading, always talking. Do you ever do anything else?" Kept her smile. She had heard this before. "We find that talking is better than fighting." "That is because you cannot fight," said another alien, this one thin and tall with too many eyes. "Your fleet is small. Your weapons are old. If they wanted your worlds, they could take them in a week." "But they will not," said calmly. "Because we are members of the collective, we have treaties, we have agreements." The aliens exchanged looks, knew what those looks meant. They meant that treaties only mattered when you had the power to enforce them. Far away, in a secure room on Earth's moon, Captain was arguing with his superiors. He was a young man, only 35, but he had studied war his entire life. Not because he wanted to fight, because he understood that sometimes you had no choice. "They are testing us," said, pointing at a holographic map. "Look at their movements. They are pushing into our space a little more each month. They are waiting to see how we respond." "We respond with diplomacy," said the general across from him. "That is our way." "Our way will get us killed," said. "I have read the reports. They have destroyed 3 species in the last 200 years. Species that could not fight back, species like us." "That is enough, Captain." Clenched his fists. "Sir, I am asking permission to review our contingency plans, the old plans from before we joined the collective." The room went quiet. Everyone knew what he was talking about. Before Earth chose peace, they had prepared for war. Great weapons had been built and then hidden away. Terrible ships had been constructed and then locked in secret hangars. Plans for total war had been written and then classified at the highest level. The contingency protocols, Earth's dark secret. Those plans are sealed, the general said. They will never be used. Earth is not a warrior civilization anymore. We might not have a choice, said quietly. That night, Admiral sat alone in his quarters. On his desk was an old photograph of his father, who had also been an admiral. His father had helped write the contingency protocols. He had spent his life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Picked up the photograph. Was it all for nothing? He asked the empty room. Did we hide all those weapons just to let them gather dust? His computer beeped. A message was coming in marked urgent. Read it twice. Then he read it a third time, hoping he had made a mistake. A fleet had been detected. 100 warships moving fast. Their destination was clear. Knew a human colony world. 14 million people. Families, children. Reached for his communicator. Get me ambassador, get me captain, get me everyone. As he waited, he looked out his window at the stars. For 80 years, humanity had tried to be civilized. They had tried to be good. They had put away their weapons and opened their arms in friendship. Now something was coming, something that did not care about friendship. And deep in his heart, a cold feeling began to grow. The feeling that everything was about to change, that the galaxy was about to learn something about humanity that they had forgotten. Humans had not always been poets. Once, long ago, they had been something else entirely. And that something was still there, sleeping in the dark, waiting to wake up. New was a beautiful world. It had green hills that rolled like waves in the ocean. It had rivers that sparkled under twin suns. It had cities made of white stone and glass, where 14 million humans lived, worked, and raised their families. Governor Shin loved this world. She had been born here on a small farm in the Southern Valley. Now she led the entire colony, and she did it with kindness. She believed that people were good. She believed that peace was always possible. That morning she was in her office looking at reports about the harvest. The crops were growing well. The children were starting school. Everything was normal. Then her assistant ran in, face white with fear. Governor, there are ships in orbit, ships. Felt her heart stop. How many? 100. They say they are here for a border inspection. Stood up slowly. Border inspection. That was a lie and everyone knew it. Knew was not near any border. They had no reason to be here. She walked to the window and looked up at the sky. She could not see the ships yet, but she knew they were there, waiting. Contact Earth, she said. Contact the collective, tell them what is happening. Already done, Governor. They say help is coming. They say to stay calm. Stay calm wanted to laugh. How could anyone stay calm? In orbit above the planet, Warlord stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was massive, even for a... His gray skin was covered in scars from 100 battles. His forearms were crossed over his chest as he looked down at the blue and green world below. Such a small planet, he said. Such weak creatures. His officers laughed. They had been waiting for this moment for years. The Dominion was tired of being patient. They were tired of watching humanity spread across the stars, building colonies, making friends, acting like they belonged. Humans did not belong in this galaxy. They were soft. They were weak. They needed to be taught a lesson. Warlord, said one of his officers, should we send a warning? Give them time to surrender. Turned his head slowly. His eyes were cold and empty. Why would I do that? They are not soldiers. They are not warriors. They are nothing. He raised one of his arms. Begin the bombardment. On the surface, Lieutenant Bay was in the defense center when the first missiles hit. The building shook so hard that he fell to the floor. Alarms screamed all around him. Screens flashed red with warnings. He was only 25 years old. He had joined the defense force because he wanted to help people. He had never seen real combat. None of them had. What do we do? Screamed one of his officers. looked at the screens. They were not attacking military targets. They were hitting cities, schools, hospitals. They were killing everyone. "Evacuate," he said, his voice shaking. "Get everyone to the underground shelters, now." He ran outside and saw something that would stay with him forever. The sky was on fire. Great balls of flame fell from above, turning buildings to dust. People were running and screaming. Children were crying for their parents. And the ships just kept firing. Governor was broadcasting on all channels. Her voice was calm, even though her hands were shaking. "Please," she said, "we are not soldiers, we are farmers, we are teachers. We have done nothing wrong. Please stop this. We will give you whatever you want. Just stop." In orbit heard her message. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You have nothing we want," he said, "except fear, and you are giving us plenty of that." He ordered his ships to increase the bombardment. Spent the next 6 hours trying to save people. He pulled children from burning buildings. He carried wounded people to shelters. He watched friends die in front of him. They were thorough. They hit every city, every town, every village. They destroyed farms and factories. They turned rivers to steam and forests to ash. When it was over, New was gone. 11 million people died that day. 11 million lives ended in fire and smoke. 11 million voices were silenced forever. Only 3 million survived, hidden in deep shelters or lucky enough to be in remote areas. Was one of them. He stood in the ruins of the capital city, covered in ash and blood, and looked up at the ships that were finally leaving. Governor was dead. She had refused to go to a shelter. She had stayed in her office, broadcasting her pleas for mercy until the building came down on top of her. Before the left sent one final message. It was broadcast to Earth, to every human colony, to the entire galaxy. His face filled the screens. His voice was cold and mocking. "Humans of Earth, look at what we have done. Look at your dead world. Look at your dead children. This is what happens when you forget your place. You are not our equals. You are not even our enemies. You are nothing. You are poets and painters and fools. Remember this day. Remember what it costs to be weak. Know your place." The message ended. On Earth, 7 billion people watched in silence. In homes and offices, in schools and hospitals, in cities and villages, everyone stopped what they were doing and watched the images from New. They saw the burning cities, they saw the dead bodies, they saw smiling. For a long moment nobody spoke, nobody moved. The entire planet was frozen in shock and grief. Then something changed. It started as a whisper. One person said it, then another, then 1,000, then 1,000,000. "No more." The words spread like fire. They appeared on screens and signs. They were painted on walls and written in the sky. No more silence, no more peace, no more being the galaxy's poets. In his office, Admiral watched the messages spreading across the planet. He had spent his entire life hoping the contingency protocols would never be needed. Now he understood that hope was not enough. He opened a secure channel to the other admirals, to the generals, to the leaders who had hidden Earth's true power for 80 years. "It is time," he said quietly. "Wake them all up." Far below the Earth's surface, in bunkers that had been sealed for decades, lights began to turn on. Computers that had been sleeping began to wake. Weapons that had been forbidden began to power up. And in the hearts of 7 billion humans, something old and terrible began to stir. Something their ancestors had known well. Something they had tried to forget. Rage. The galaxy had wanted to see what humanity was made of. Now they would find out, and they would wish they had never asked. 3 days had passed since New burned. 3 days of grief, 3 days of tears, 3 days of silence. Now the silence was over. The United Earth Parliament building in Geneva was full. Every seat was taken. Representatives from every nation on Earth had come. The galleries were packed with people who had waited in line for days just to be here. Outside, Millions more watched on giant screens set up in the streets. Secretary General walked to the podium. She was 60 years old, with white hair and a face that had always looked kind. Today, her face looked like stone. "We are here," she said, "to discuss the future of humanity." The room was so quiet that you could hear people breathing. 3 days ago, the Dominion murdered 11 million of our people. They burned our cities. They killed our children. They destroyed our world. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped the podium tightly. And when they were done, they laughed at us. They called us poets. They told us to know our place. She paused and looked around the room. "I have spent my life believing in peace. I have spent my life believing that words were stronger than weapons. I was wrong." A murmur went through the crowd. "For 80 years we tried to be good. We tried to be civilized. We put away our weapons. We opened our hearts. And what did we get? We got new." She stepped back from the podium. "But I am not here to make speeches. I am here to listen. Ambassador, please come forward." Walked to the podium. She looked older than she had 3 days ago. There were dark circles under her eyes. "I spent 20 years building friendships with other species," she said. "I believed that if we were kind enough, smart enough, patient enough, they would accept us. I was a fool." She took a deep breath. "After New, I contacted every ally we had. I asked for help. I asked for justice. Do you know what they said?" "Silence." "They said they were concerned. They said they would investigate. They said these things take time." Her voice cracked. 11 million people are dead, and they said these things take time." She pulled something from her pocket. It was her badge of office, the symbol of her position as Earth's chief diplomat. "I resign," she said. "Diplomacy has failed us. I have failed us." She placed the badge on the podium and walked away. Watched her go, then turned back to the crowd. "Thank you, Ambassador. Your service will not be forgotten." She looked down at her notes. "Admiral Park, please come forward." Walked to the podium. He was still wearing his uniform, but he looked different somehow. Harder, colder. "When Earth joined the Galactic Collective," he said, "we agreed to limit our military. We said we would never build weapons of mass destruction. We said we would never threaten other species. We kept our promises." He pressed a button and a holographic display appeared behind him. It showed ships, hundreds of ships, thousands of ships. "But we also prepared for the day when our promises would not protect us. We called it the contingency protocols. Secret plans, hidden away, waiting for the moment when peace was no longer possible." The crowd stared at the images. These were not the small patrol ships they were used to. These were warships, real warships, ships built to destroy. For 80 years, these ships have been sleeping in hidden bases across the solar system. For 80 years, these weapons have been waiting in bunkers deep underground. We hoped we would never need them. He turned to face the crowd. "That hope is dead." A new figure came to the podium. Doctor was thin and nervous-looking, with glasses that kept sliding down his nose. He was the head of Earth's Scientific Council. "I was part of Project Ember," he said quietly. "It was our darkest secret. While the rest of humanity was creating art and music, a small group of us was creating something else." He pressed a button and new images appeared. Weapons, terrible weapons. Planet crackers, weapons that can break a world in half. Nova bombs, devices that can make a star explode. Plague ships, vessels that carry diseases designed to kill specific species. The crowd gasped. Some people looked sick. "We built these things because we knew the truth. The galaxy is not a peaceful place. The galaxy is full of predators, and we are not going to be prey." He stepped back and returned to the podium. "Earth has a choice to make," she said. "We can stay as we are. We can remain the galaxy's poets. We can send strongly worded letters and hope that they do not come back." Her eyes swept across the room. "Or we can show them who we really are." She straightened her back and lifted her chin. For 80 years, we showed the galaxy our poets, our artists, our philosophers. We believed that culture would earn us respect. We were wrong. They saw weakness. They killed our children. Her voice rose, filling the chamber. Today, Earth declares to the Galactic Collective, we are done being cultured. The room exploded with sound. People were shouting, crying, stamping their feet. Waited for the noise to die down. You wanted to see what humanity could do. You will see. You wanted warriors. You will meet them. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. She turned to Admiral. Admiral, you have your orders. Wake the fleet. Arm the weapons. Prepare our soldiers. She looked back at the crowd, and her face was terrible in its calm. The age of poets is over. The age of warriors begins. Outside the Parliament building, the crowds watching on screens began to cheer. The sound spread across the city, across the country, across the world. 7 billion voices united in fury. Across the planet, things began to happen. Hidden doors opened in mountainsides. Secret elevators rose from underground bunkers. Ships that had never flown lifted off from hidden bases. On Mars, a massive hangar opened for the first time in 70 years. Inside were 100 ships, each one bristling with weapons. Their crews were already boarding. On Luna, factories that had been making art supplies switched to making bullets. Assembly lines that had been building musical instruments started building bombs. And in homes across Earth, young men and women looked at their families and made a decision. They would fight. They would avenge new. They would make the pay. In his office, Admiral watched the reports coming in. The mobilization was happening faster than anyone had expected. It was like humanity had been waiting for this moment. Captain appeared on his screen. Admiral, the first wave of ships is ready. Where do we go? Looked at a map of the galaxy. The Dominion was far away, but not far enough. We go everywhere, he said. We show the galaxy that Earth is awake, and then we go and we make them understand what they have done. Nodded. Sir, there is something I need to say. I warned them. I told them this would happen. They did not listen. Looked at him for a long moment. I know, and I am sorry, but now is not the time for blame. Now is the time for action. He stood up and looked out at the stars. The galaxy called us poets. They were right, but they forgot something. Poets know words, and sometimes the most powerful word is not peace. He turned back to, sometimes the most powerful word is war. 6 months had passed since the declaration. 6 months of fire and steel. 6 months of transformation. General stood on a platform high above the largest shipyard in human history. Below him, thousands of workers moved like ants, building the machines of war. The sound of hammers and welders filled the air. Sparks flew like stars being born. Was 70 years old. He had spent most of his life teaching military history at a university. He had written books about ancient battles, about strategies and tactics, about the art of war. He never thought he would use that knowledge for real. Now he was the supreme commander of the Earth Expeditionary Force, and he was building an army that would shake the galaxy. General, said his aide, the latest numbers are in. We have recruited 4 million soldiers in the last 6 months. 2 million are already trained. Nodded. Not enough. We need more. Sir, people are volunteering faster than we can process them. Everyone wants to fight. Then process them faster. He walked along the platform, looking down at the ships being built. They were beautiful in a terrible way, long and sleek, with weapons covering every surface. Each one was a message written in steel. We are not poets anymore. In another part of the shipyard, Engineer No was working on his masterpiece. He had not slept in 3 days. He did not care. Sleep was for peacetime. The ship in front of him was massive. It was longer than most cities, wider than mountains. Its hull was black as space, dotted with weapon ports that glowed red in the darkness. This was the first of the Judgment-class dreadnoughts. He had named it the Reckoning. "Is it ready?" asked a voice behind him. Turned to see Admiral walking toward him. The Admiral looked tired but determined. "Almost," said. "The main weapons are online. The shields are at 90%. The engines can push us to faster than light in 30 seconds. Looked up at the ship. "It is beautiful." "It is a weapon," said. "Weapons are not supposed to be beautiful." "This one is." Put his hand on the hull. "This ship will carry our anger to the stars. This ship will make them pay for what they did." Was quiet for a moment. "Admiral, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "After this is over, after we have won, what happens then? Do we go back to being poets, or are we warriors forever now?" Did not answer for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "I do not know. I hope we can go back, but I am not sure we will remember how." Far away, on a training base on Mars, Commander Song was teaching her pilots how to kill. She was 32 years old, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Before the declaration, she had been a cargo pilot, flying supplies between colonies. She had never fired a weapon in her life. Now she was the leader of Ghost Wing, the most elite fighter squadron in the human fleet. Her pilots were the best of the best, and she was making them even better. "Again," she said, watching the simulator screens. "You are too slow. The fighters can turn faster than that. If you fly like that in real combat, you will die." Her pilots groaned but reset the simulation. They had been training for 16 hours straight. They were exhausted. She did not care. "I know you are tired," she said. "They will not care if you are tired. They will kill you anyway. So train until you cannot fail. Train until killing them is as easy as breathing." One of her pilots, a young woman named, raised her hand. "Commander, is it true that they have never lost a space battle?" Smiled. It was not a kind smile. "They have never fought humans before. Not real humans, not the humans we used to be." She turned back to the screens. "Again. On Earth, the factories never stopped. Day and night they produced weapons, ships, armor, and ammunition. The economy had completely transformed. Everything was focused on one goal: war. People who had been artists became engineers. People who had been musicians became soldiers. People who had been teachers became trainers. Everyone had a role to play." In the Galactic Collective, the other species watched with growing fear. They had seen humans before. They had laughed at them, mocked them, called them weak. Now they were not laughing. Spies sent reports back to their governments. The reports were terrifying. "The humans are not building a defense fleet," one report said. "They are building an invasion force. 800 warships, 2 million soldiers, weapons we have never seen before. They are not preparing to protect themselves. They are preparing to attack." The Dominion heard these reports and laughed. Warlord called a meeting of his generals. "Let the poets come," he said. "We have 5,000 warships. We have 20 million warriors. They are nothing to us." One of his generals, an old warrior named, was less confident. "Warlord, the reports say they have planet crackers, nova bombs, weapons that can destroy worlds." Waved his hand dismissively. "All species make such claims. It means nothing. The humans are soft. They have been soft for 80 years. A few months of building ships will not change what they are." "But Warlord—" "Enough," slammed his fist on the table. "I destroyed their colony world. I killed 11 million of them. They should be begging for mercy, not building armies. This is a bluff, nothing more." But deep down, in a place he would never admit existed, felt something strange. Something he had not felt in a very long time. Doubt. Back in the shipyard, Admiral stood before his officers. The room was full of the people who would lead humanity's war. Generals, admirals, commanders, captains. The best military minds Earth had to offer. "In 1 week," said, "the Earth Expeditionary Force will be complete. 800 warships, 2 million soldiers, enough firepower to burn a star. He pressed a button, and a map of the galaxy appeared. Our target is the Dominion. They have 100 worlds, 5,000 warships, and 20 million soldiers. He paused. They think that is enough. They are wrong. He pointed at the map. We will hit them fast and hard. We will not negotiate. We will not accept surrender until they have paid for what they did. Every soldier will know the name Nu. Every child will learn what happens when you attack humanity. General stepped forward. Admiral, what about the Galactic Collective? They will try to stop us. Turn to look at him. Let them try. Where was the Collective when Nu burned? Where was their concern then? They had their chance to help us. They chose not to. Now they will watch. He looked at each person in the room. We are not the same humans who joined the Collective 80 years ago. We are not poets anymore. We are not philosophers. We are not artists. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the room. We are the children of warriors, and we remember how to fight. 1 week later, the Earth Expeditionary Force assembled in orbit around Earth. 800 ships, arranged in perfect formation. The largest human fleet in history. From the Bridge of the Reckoning, Admiral looked out at his fleet. It was terrifying. It was beautiful. It was the answer to every insult humanity had ever received. He opened a channel to all ships. Sons and daughters of Earth, we are going to war. Not for territory, not for resources, for justice. For the 11 million souls who died on Nu. For every child who will never grow up. For every parent who will never see their children again. He took a deep breath. Set course for the Dominion. We have a lesson to teach. 800 ships turned as one and jumped to faster than light. The stars streaked past. Earth was going to war. And the galaxy would never be the same. The first world to fall was called Station. It was a military outpost, home to 200 warships and 50,000 soldiers. It was the base from which the attack on Nu had been launched. Admiral chose it personally. He wanted them to understand. This was not random. This was revenge. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light space like wolves falling on sheep. Commander Song led her Ghost Wing Squadron in the first wave. Her pilots moved with deadly precision, targeting the station's weapons and shields. Ghost 2 take out that cannon array. Ghost 5 disable their communications. I want them blind and silent. Her pilots obeyed without question. They had trained for this moment. They had dreamed of it. Every time they closed their eyes, they saw Nu burning. Now it was time to answer that fire with fire. The defenders were caught completely off guard. They had expected the humans to come slowly, carefully, with negotiations and warnings. Instead, the humans came like a storm. In 4 minutes, Station's defenses were disabled. In 6 minutes, their fleet was crippled. In 10 minutes, it was over. Admiral opened a channel to the station. This is Admiral Park of the Earth Expeditionary Force. Your weapons are destroyed. Your ships are dead. You have 6 minutes to evacuate all personnel to the escape pods. A commander appeared on the screen. He was bleeding from a wound on his head, and his eyes were wild with shock. 6 minutes, that is not enough time. We have 50,000 people. You gave the people of Nu 6 hours, said coldly. I am giving you 6 minutes. That is more mercy than you deserve. The commander stared at him. You cannot do this, the Collective. The Collective did nothing when you killed our children. Why would I care what they think? Leaned forward. 5 minutes and 40 seconds. The commander screamed orders to his people. Escape pods began launching from the station, carrying whoever could reach them in time. When the 6 minutes were up, Admiral gave the order. Fire! The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Station disappeared in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 planets away. 20,000 who had not made it to the escape pods died instantly. It was brutal. It was ruthless. It was exactly what it intended. The message was clear. Humanity was not playing games. News of Station spread across the Dominion like wildfire. For the first time in their history, the new fear. The poets had come, and they were not writing songs. Lieutenant Bay was on the ground for the next assault. He had transferred from the defense force to the invasion force. He wanted to be there when they paid for what they had done. The target was a colony world called. It was a civilian world, home to millions of families. Orders were clear, military targets only. No civilian casualties unless absolutely necessary. "We are not like them," General had said before the mission. "We will fight with honor. We will kill their soldiers, not their children. That is what makes us different." Believed that. He wanted to believe it. But as he walked through the ruins of a military base, stepping over the bodies of enemy soldiers, he wondered if it mattered. War was war. Death was death. Did it make a difference if you killed soldiers instead of children? He pushed the thought away. He had a job to do. In space, the campaign continued. One by one, military installations fell. The human fleet moved through space like a blade through flesh, cutting away everything in its path. Warlord watched the reports with growing fury. This was not possible. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be poets. How were they destroying his empire? He gathered his full armada, 400 warships, the pride of the Dominion. He would meet the humans in open battle and crush them once and for all. "They caught us by surprise before," he told his commanders. "That will not happen again. We outnumber them 2-1. We will destroy them." His commanders nodded, but their confidence was not as strong as before. They had seen the reports from Station. They had heard the stories from survivors. The humans fought like demons. They showed no fear, no hesitation. They killed with cold efficiency. The two fleets met at a place called the Crimson Nebula. It was a beautiful region of space, filled with red and orange clouds of gas. It was about to become a graveyard. Admiral looked at the fleet on his screen. 400 ships against his 200. The thought they had the advantage. They were wrong. "All ships, this is Admiral. They outnumber us, but numbers do not win wars. Skill wins wars. Courage wins wars. And the burning need to protect those you love wins wars." He paused. Think of think of the children who died. Think of the families who were torn apart. And then show these creatures what humanity can do. The battle began. Commander Song led her ghost wing into the heart of the formation. Her pilots moved like dancers, spinning and turning, their weapons firing in perfect rhythm. Ships exploded around them. Ghost Wing, focus on their command ships. Cut off the head and the body will fall. She targeted its flagship and dove toward it, firing everything she had. Her missiles slammed into its shields, weakening them. Other human ships joined her attack. They fought back desperately, but they were outmatched. Human tactics were centuries ahead of anything they had seen. Human weapons were more powerful than they had believed. And human pilots flew with a fury that bordered on madness. 3 hours later, it was over. 377 ships were destroyed. Only 23 human ships were lost. It was not a battle, it was a massacre. Stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, watching his empire burn. His fleet was gone. His warriors were dead. Everything he had built was crumbling. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible? They were poets, they were weak." His first officer, one of the few who had survived, shook his head. "They were never weak, Warlord. They chose to be peaceful. There is a difference." Stared at him. For the first time he understood. The humans had not been unable to fight. They had been unwilling. They had chosen peace deliberately, knowing they could choose war at any time. And now they had made a different choice. The Galactic Collective sent envoys to Admiral, begging him to stop. They offered to mediate. They offered to negotiate. They offered anything if the humans would just stop destroying the. Received them in his office on the reckoning. He listened to their pleas politely. Then he gave his answer. Where was your mediation when Nu burned? Where were your negotiations when 11 million of my people died? You had your chance to help us. You chose to do nothing. The envoys shifted nervously. Admiral, please, they have learned their lesson, surely. Learned their lesson, stood up, his voice rising. My lesson is not finished yet. When I am done, they will never threaten anyone again. When I am done, every species in this galaxy will know what it costs to attack humanity. He pointed at the door. Go back to your collective, tell them to watch, and pray that you never give us a reason to teach you the same lesson. The human fleet continued its advance. Prime, the heart of the Dominion, was now in range. Stood at a viewing window, watching the stars streak past. Behind him were the veterans of a dozen battles. Soldiers who had started as farmers, teachers, and artists. Soldiers who had become killers. Sir, said one of them, what happens when this is over? Do we go home? Looked at the stars. He thought of Nu. He thought of the people he had lost. I do not know, he said honestly. I do not know if there is a home to go back to, not the one we remember anyway. Ahead of them, Prime waited. The final battle was coming. And Warlord, for the first time in his life, was afraid.